Hello Year 7, welcome to this lesson on decimal and fraction conversions. Before we start, can you just make sure you've got your pen and paper handy, because I want you to be working along with these examples as we do them. Okay, let's get started. Our first question, I'd like for you to write 372 in expanded notation. Pause the video and have a go. Okay, so I hope you saw it was 3 times 100 plus 7 times 10 plus 2 times 1. Or if you prefer to use index laws, 3 times 10 squared plus 7 times 10 to the power of 1, which is just 10, plus 2 times 10 to the power of 0. And of course you know that 10 to the power of 0 is 1. Okay, next question. Write 18.2 in expanded notation. So this is something a little bit new. I've got a decimal point and a 0.2 here. So I'd like you to try to follow the same reasoning and see if you can write this in expanded notation. Pause the video and have a go now. Okay, so I hope you got 1 times 10 plus 8 times 1 plus 2 times 1/10. And have a look at these terms here, the 10, the 1, and the 1/10. Notice that each time we're dividing by 10. 10 divided by 10 is 1, divided by 10 is 1/10. If I had a bigger number, there'd be a hundreds column up here, which is of course 10 times bigger than the 10. Maybe you wrote this a different way. Maybe you wrote it just as 10 plus 8 plus 0.2, and that's a reasonable way to write it too. And if we look at these two ways of writing it, we can see that 2 times 1 over 10 and 0.2 mean the same thing. So 0.2 is equal to 2/10, and that's going to be important. We're going to use that relationship for some future questions. So now I'm going to ask you to write this one, 1.73 in expanded notation. Please pause the video and have a go at writing this in expanded notation like you saw before. Okay, I assume you've done that. So I hope that you got 1 by 1 plus 7 times a 10th plus 3 by 1 over 100. And notice that same relationship again. 1 divided by 10 is a 10th. I divide a 10th by 10 and I get 1 over 100. So I'm going up or down by powers of 10. Okay, let's look at the next question. I now want you to write 0.73 as a fraction. So pause the video and have a go. I hope you're done. So the first thing I realize is 0.73 is 7 over 10 plus 3 over 100. I saw that from the last question, but let's make a common denominator. So I'm going to times this 10 by 10 to make a common denominator of 100, but I times the 7 by 10 to make the top and the bottom multiplied by the same thing. So now I've got 70 over 100 plus 3 over 100, and these have a common denominator, so I can just add them together and I can get 73 over 100. But there's actually a faster way of doing this. If you see a 0.73, notice that there's two digits, this one and this one, after the decimal place. What you can do is get this 73 and put it over 100. Why 100, you ask? It's 100 because I've got two digits after the decimal place, so I have two zeros on the bottom, and I'm always going to have powers of 10 on the bottom, okay? Like 10, 100, 1,000, maybe even 10,000 if it's a big question. Okay, next few questions. So now you really need to pause the video because I want you to have a go at all 4 of these questions before you move on. So, pause the video now and please write them out. Okay, I assume you've done them by now and you've unpaused the video, so let's have a look at the answers. 0.2, I get the 2, which is the number after the decimal point, and I put it over a 10. 1 digit after the decimal point, 1 0 on the denominator. 2 over 10, and I can simplify that to 1 over 5. The next one, 1.59. I get the 59, which is after the decimal point, and I put it over 100. 2 digits after the decimal point, 2 zeros in this denominator, and the 1 here and the 1 here stays out the front, so it's 1 and 59 over 100, or if you like, 159 out of 100. Both of those are completely fine. The next one is 0.05, and that's going to be 5 out of 100. There's 2 digits after the decimal point, so 2 zeros on the denominator, and I've got 5 here, so I've got 5 over 100. Or I could say 0.5 over 100 because I've got a 0.5 here, but 0.5 and 5 are both the same thing, they're both just 5, and that's 1 over 20 when I simplify it by dividing the top and the bottom by 5. Okay, next one, 2.02. So I get the 0.2 or the 2, I put it over 100, 2 digits after the decimal point, 2 zeros on the denominator, so I've got 2 and 2 over 100, which is 2 and 1 over 50, which I can convert as 101 over 50. 2 by 50 is 100, and plus 1 is 101. If you wanted, you could have also just put 202 straight over the 100 as well. Okay, let's take a look at the next part. I want you to write the following as decimals. So in this one, we're going to go backwards. I've given you the fractions, and I want you to turn these into decimals. So please pause the video and have a go to make sure that you can do these. Okay, so I've assumed you've paused the video and you've unpaused it, so let's take a look. We've got 4 over 10 is 0.4, 1 0 on the denominator, 1 digit after the decimal point. 27 over 100 is 0.27, 2 zeros on the denominator, 2 digits after the decimal point. 27 over 1,000, I've chosen this one so the numbers are the same. So I've got 3 digits on the 3 zeros on the denominator. 1, 2, 3. So I put 3 digits after the decimal point. Notice I still want to put a 27 after the decimal point, but to have 3 digits after the decimal point, I need to add this 0 here, so I've got 0.27. But of course we know that 0.27 and 27 are the same. So now let's take a look at the fourth one, 18 over 10. Well, first I'm going to make it a mixed numeral, 1 and 8 over 10, and 8 over 10 is just 0.8 because I've got 1 0 on the denominator and 1 digit after the decimal point. Okay guys, so hopefully you're happy with that. Let's now go to the next section, and I'm going to ask you to write these ones as decimals. And notice that I've made it just a little bit trickier because I haven't given you tens or hundreds or thousands on the denominator. I've given you some other numbers, so you've got to convert them into tens or hundreds or thousands. Please pause the video and have a go. Okay, so you've now unpaused the video and are ready to see the answer. The first thing I did, 33 over 50, I times the 50 by 2 to make it 100, and I had to times the 33 by 2 to get 66. 66 over 100 is 0.66. Question 2, I times the 20 by 5 to get to 100, so I times the 7 by 5 because I've got to do the same thing to the top and the bottom, and I got 35 over 100, and that's of course 0.35. Question 3, 9 over 5. So I times the 5 just by 2 to get to 10. That's a good enough number. And then I times the 9 by 2 as well, and that gives me 18. So I've got 18 over 10, or 1 8/10, as you know how to convert an improper fraction into a mixed numeral, and that's 1.8. Question 4. You had 250 in the bottom, and it's bigger than 100, so we had to go up to a higher number, so I times it by 4 to get to 1,000. So I've also got to times this 6 by 4, and I get 24 over 1,000 when I times the top and bottom by 4, and that's 0.024. Notice the 1, 2, 3 zeros on the denominator of the fraction, and the 1, 2, 3 digits after the decimal point. Okay, let's do our next question. Write 3/8 as a decimal. So have a go at this one, and I'm actually going to do it a slightly different way. So pause the video and see if you can get your answer. Okay, good. I assume you've done it. So let's do it. What I'm doing this time is I'm actually going to go 3 divided by 8. Okay, so I go 3 and I'm dividing it by 8. So I put my 8 here and my 3 here, and I go 8s into 3 goes 0 with 3 carried on. 8s into 30, I can fit 3 of them because 8 by 3 is 24, so I can fit 3 8s into 30 with 6 left over. Then I do 8s into 60. I know that 7 8s go into 60, 7 8s go into 60 with 4 left over, and 8s into 40, I know 5 8s go into 40, and 5 8s go exactly into 40, so no leftovers. So I've got 0.375. And notice I've got my 3 1s here in the denominator, or in the base of this division, and my decimal point here. So I've got this point here and this point here. I'm going to line them up vertically, okay, so they're aligned. And I now know that 3/8 equals to 0.375. Some of you might have done it another way. Some of you might have actually realized you could times 8 by 125 and get to 1,000 and done 375 over 1,000. And that's also a fine way to do that one. But it might not help you in a question like this. I want you to now write 1/3 as a decimal. And this time you're going to have to do a division because there's no way you can times 3 by any number or any whole number to get to 10, 100 or 1,000. So have a go at that and see if you can get the right answer. Okay, let's check our answer. So we do 1 divided by 3. 3 goes on the outside, 1 goes on the inside. 3 into 1 goes 0, carry the 1. 3 into 10 goes 3, with 1 left over. 3 into this 10 goes 3, with 1 left over, and you get the idea. It goes on forever and ever. So 1/3 equals to 0.333 forever, which I write as 0.3, and I put a little dot above the 3 to indicate that the 3 keeps on going forever and ever. Alright guys, that's it. So, your homework. You're going to do Cambridge 8, 4C, questions 1 to 4, and that's all of questions 1 to 4. And then you're going to do 5 to 8, ACE, ... The ACE ... means you keep doing them in that pattern, okay? So ACE, and then every question on, so ACEG, and so on and so on. Then you're going to do question 9, question 11, and question 12, and maybe your class teacher may set you a little bit of extra work from Hot Maths. Okay guys, see you next video.